Well, how many of you have been in a drive-thru at a fast food place and it's taken longer than it was supposed to? Where they have, yeah, I know. They have you move forward and, or go park there. Somebody will bring your food out. And maybe the thoughts crossed your mind that, whatever happened to fast food, right? And maybe some of you have been sitting in your car parked waiting for your food so long that you finally just got fed up and you walked inside. And I'm not saying you walked inside throwing paper straws and a fit and being angry, but you wanted to find out what's going on. This is supposed to be done, right? It's supposed to be over. This whole experience. Tired of waiting. And I want us to understand that the problems that we face, if you are facing problems, they're meant to be momentary. Momentary. But people don't know that. And there's problems that people have been facing that are still plaguing them from years back. So let's look at 2 Corinthians chapter 4 tonight. Because I want you to get fed up with these drive-thru problems. I mean, we can express that easy enough in the drive-thru. We have an estimation of how long this should last, and it should be over by now. And we don't settle for it. But when problems come, the devil can work it in a way where we become just too acquainted with the problem. We allow it to overstay its welcome. It's welcome. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 17. Now, if you want to turn in the Bible tonight, and you don't have a Bible to turn to, we have a couple ushers with Bibles. If you just slip up your hand, they'll get you a Bible so you can follow along with us as we look at God's Word. So 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 17. It says, "For our light affliction, which is but for a moment, works for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory." Now, if you have looked at more verses than just this, primarily about the life of Paul, you know that Paul had faced a lot. The early church had faced a lot of affliction, a lot of persecution. Those kind of afflictions and persecutions that we don't face in America. We don't face the threat of losing our job, of being taken out into the streets and publicly beat, or thrown in to some arena for people's entertainment while animals eat us alive, or we're burned at the stake, or imprisonment. And Paul had faced imprisonment, shipwreck, beatings, and yet all of those things, which would be extremely severe to us, Paul called light afflictions. Light afflictions. Some people get bent out of shape and will lock themselves in a closet for 2 days if somebody doesn't like their Facebook post. Or they've made a Facebook post and somebody wrote a nasty comment. And now they're considering, just getting off of Facebook altogether. And my life is in shambles. It's a light affliction. It's a light affliction. I'm not saying that somebody's words or responses to you regarding your faith can't sting or hurt a little bit, but ultimately, everything the devil throws our way is to be considered a light affliction. For our light affliction, which is but for a moment, works for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory. How many know it's our job to agree with the Word? I notice Rich's shirt. On the back it says, the Word says it, I believe it, that settles it, right? We're to agree as believers with the Word. It's important. That's part of spiritual growth. I understand that a person that maybe is new to the faith, they're growing, right? They may have more of this American or Burger King mentality, right? I'll just have it my way. I'll pick and choose. You know, I want the double Whopper, but I don't want the cheese. Heavy on the pickles, no lettuce, right? I get that. But when it comes to the Word, as you grow, your life is submitted to what it says. And just like Rich's shirt, if the Word says it, I believe it, that settles it. I'm going to align myself with the Word. In fact, we will come to the point as we grow to this realization that I'm not even entitled to my own opinions. That's an American philosophy, that you just get to have your own opinions. Not when you're a believer. If the Word says it, and it flies in the face of my opinion, then one of them has to change, right? And it's not going to be the Word. And you can disagree with it, and you can turn your back to it, and you can ignore it, but the Word is still the same yesterday, today, and forever. That's not going to change. And as long as you stay opposed to the Word, you're going to stay stuck. It's like something, you know, when you see a lot of rain, right, come down, fills up the ditches, and something gets clogged in the culvert, and it prevents the water from flowing the way it's intended to. That can be a representation of your life. So the best approach to the Word is, again, just going back to Rich's shirt. I'm so glad I paid you to wear that tonight. If God says it, I believe it, and that settles it. God isn't going to change His Word because of your personal belief or your opinion. So as believers, we're to yield ourselves to the Word. To the Word. That doesn't mean that you can't ask God questions. That doesn't mean that you are a mindless drone. It means that we recognize the authority of the Word and its place in our life. So, if the Word calls these problems in our life a light affliction, then it's a light affliction. It's a light affliction. You know, really, problems are what you make it. They're really what you make it, because you could be facing a problem right now that in 20 years to you, it's not even a problem. You know, you look at a Fortune 500 company and the amount of employees they have and the amount of money they need just for payroll. Most people, if they were exposed to that, they would freak out. They could not handle that. Just the understanding that this multiplied millions of dollars has to be available by Friday for payroll. It would send them swimming. They'd be like, I can't even fathom that. And yet the same people will freak out because they have a $35 water bill that's due on Friday and they don't know how they're going to pay the water bill. And I'm not belittling that, but I'm telling you, it's you that's making it big or small. It really is. It's you. Because what may be monumental and massive to you, to another person, it's nothing. It's like a fleck of lint on their shoulder. It's nothing. And we as believers aren't even to be living in this natural mindset where what happens in the natural is either derailing us, clogging up the flow, becoming a mountain instead of just a molehill. It's a light affliction. So if the word calls it a light affliction, then it's a light affliction. And so then it's not okay to call something heavy that God and His Word calls light. Right? We're growing. Say, I'm growing. We're all growing. I said we. That means me. I'm in this with you. We're all growing. But if the Word calls it a light affliction, then it's a light affliction. Here's a great example. Tyler and Tatum are getting married on Friday. Woot woot. It's awesome. I can't wait. I'm going to be there because I'm going to be officiating it.
It's at your house.
And it's at my house. Yep, in the basement. No, it's on the main level. So we are going to be there with them on Friday. And I don't know. I went through a wedding. I liked it so much I went through it twice. No, I'm just kidding. With my wedding with my wife, here, as you know, who's been through a wedding where there's things that happen and all of a sudden it's like the end of the world, right? The caterer's late. Where's the caterer at? We just were at Jaden and Jesse's wedding, right? And the caterer was late. Way late. But you know what? They got there, and within a matter of a few minutes, everything was ready, right on time. But in the heat of the moment, we're staring out the window of the reception hall, looking down the gravel road. Where's the caterer? Right? And then all the thoughts are compiling. But what happened? The caterer showed up, and everything worked out. And in a wedding, I'm not prophesying this over your wedding. We're standing with you for a beautiful wedding. But I was just visiting with Tyler's mom, and she had such a peace about her today because she said, everything that would need to be done is really done. Like if we wanted to get a different photographer, it's too late. We already got a photographer locked in. You're down to the wire. You got 6 days. So really, there's nothing more that you can add to it. It's all done. But the point I'm making is, in the throes of our wedding, there were some things that came up that in the moment seemed monumental. Like, am I going to seat my mother-in-law next to my mother? And then what song are we going to do for the dance and this? And it's all momentary. And we tell that to every couple, that this wedding, you need to enjoy it. You need to enjoy it. Because how many know that you spend weeks and months getting ready for the wedding, but the day of, it's like that, and it's done. And it's done. And if you are stressing about all the little things, then you don't even get to enjoy the wedding. Anybody have that happen where there were all these little distractions and things and you kept so busy with that and stressed out about this that you didn't even get to enjoy the actual wedding to its fullest like you could have, right? These are light afflictions that are momentary. How long should afflictions last in our life? A moment. A moment. The Amplified Classic says the slight distress of the passing hour. It's momentary. But Pastor, this has been going on for several months now. This hasn't been momentary. Are you allowing it to stay? Are you making this problem so big that you don't feel like there's no way out of it? Are you allowing this thing to be long-term or temporary? Think about this. I just started off the message with talking about going through a drive-thru at a fast food restaurant, and then they prolong the delivery of your food. They have you pull around, park there, and then you're sitting there waiting, and you're getting more angry, more frustrated. Why? Because this is supposed to be a temporary experience. Right? And then when the devil brings affliction and trouble, we just kind of lay down and just take it and hope that someday this passes. Well, I'm going to tell you, the devil doesn't want this thing to pass. All he wants to do is to steal, kill, and to destroy. So if you're waiting on him to just, move on to the next victim, you have a long wait ahead of you. You have a long wait ahead of you. These are momentary afflictions. How do we keep it to a moment instead of a lifetime? Verse 18. While we look not at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporary. What's the things that we're seeing? The affliction. The affliction. It's temporary. It's temporary. The things that are not seen are eternal. Everything this word is telling you is eternal. Everything in here is what is unseen. The promises of God, you can read them with your physical eyeballs, but by His stripes you're healed, that has yet to manifest. That's unseen, but you don't focus on the pain, you focus on the unseen. And when you attach your focus and your faith to the unseen, it brings it to the seen. But as long as your faith and focus is on the seen, you're going to stay attached to that seen realm. And what is supposed to be a light affliction that's momentary becomes a big pain in your side, a problem for life. It's a momentary affliction. Momentary. Momentary. Travis is just this weekend moving into a new shop. Praise God. I'm sorry, I don't know if I was supposed to announce that. It's awesome. He's got a great painting business, and now a beautiful shop with an office and everything. It's awesome. And with that lease, it was agreed to that you would do it this weekend. And you'd already made plans. You got everything lined up so that by the Monday, start of work week, you're ready to go, or somewhat moved into the new place, right? Now think about that. If they had everything signed, everything's ready to go, and then on Friday gets a call, well, hey, guess what? The shop's not going to be ready till August. Now, I know that they're not going to, act ungodly about it, but there's going to be a sense of, no, we agreed to June 1st. We agreed to this. And we don't want this to be delayed. We don't want this drawn out. You know what I'm saying? Just like the drive-thru experience, you just wouldn't put up with it. I don't want you to put up with things that are prolonged in your life. These are momentary, temporary light afflictions. That's it. And that light affliction has turned into this. It's like the stray cat example I had a few weeks ago. It's like this little temporary stray cat is now this mountain lion in your house that's governing your whole life. And it's taken up residency. That's not how it is meant to be. It's not what the Word says. I want you to get riled up. I want you to be through with these drive-through problems. They're drive-through problems. They're momentary, right? I don't get mad if I go to a nice restaurant and I order my food and I don't have it, in 3 minutes. Because I know and understand the environment I'm in. But if I'm in a fast food environment, that's why they tell you, hey, look, we don't have any chicken up. It's going to be 10 minutes for the chicken. Are you willing to wait? Right? Because they know that your expectancy is that this is going to be temporary. I'm ordering my chicken sandwich at Popeyes, which has one of the best chicken sandwiches, by the way. If you haven't had it, it's delicious. So, you have an expectation, right? So don't stop, or let me back up. When we are fixed in this natural arena instead of the spiritual arena, momentary hardships become lifetime hardships. Things that are meant to be temporary become permanent. Opposition comes, but we keep moving because our destination is not that location. It's the light affliction that is but for a moment. It shows us that opposition is only meant to be momentarily, or a moment. Too many Christians, now listen, too many in the church, too many believers are lingering too long in situations because they're giving them too much attention. Again, verse 18, we focus on those things that are unseen. If things don't get our attention, then they just keep passing through. But when we focus on them, we invite them to stay. Our attention either invites something to remain or demands that it leave. Right? If you have a fly in your house, how many of you have just sat there in the kitchen, there's a fly, and you're looking with the fly swatter waiting for it to land because you're sick and tired of this stupid fly, right? And you can't see it the whole time, but it comes in and out of your peripheral, and then you're waiting for it to land, right? Because this fly's residency in my house is going to be temporary, right? Let's look at Hebrews chapter 12. Hebrews chapter 12. Hebrews 12. I'm going to read this out of the New Living. It says, therefore, since we are surrounded, so verse 1, since we are surrounded by a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, that's referring to Hebrews 11. We know that when Paul wrote this was a letter originally to the church, and it didn't have the divisions of chapter and verses. They did that later for easy reference. So all of Hebrews 11 is reciting these great men and women of faith, right? Folks that were threatened even with their own lives, like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, like Daniel, but they stayed faithful. People that endured contradiction of the promise of God, like Abraham and his wife Sarah, who were promised a child in their old age. They, by faith, saw the promise of God happen in their life. And so that's referencing this huge crowd of witnesses, or that's who is being referenced with that phrase, crowd of witnesses. It says, let us to this life of faith. That's the life we're to live. We live by faith, not by sight. We live by faith. Let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially for the sin that so easily trips us up, and let us run with endurance the race that God has set before us. We are supposed to be running right now, running the race. And I'm telling you, that momentary affliction that has become now permanent has caused you to stop running. That's its intent. That's the enemy's intent with it, is to prevent you from running. But you can see clearly that right now, all of us are supposed to be running. We should not be satisfied. You know, the devil, he is going to ease it into your life. He works very subtly. That's how he was initially described in the garden in Genesis chapter 3, that the snake, the serpent, was the most subtle. So it's not just this massive mountain, boom. It's subtle so that you'll allow it, or you'll feel like, I have to take this, and then it just gets bigger and bigger until you're no longer running. Verse 2, we do this. What? We run this race with endurance. We do it by keeping our eyes on Jesus. It's really the answer, folks, is your eyes are either on the problem or they're on Jesus. They're either on the problem or they're on the Word, because Jesus is the Word. Remember when Jesus gave the word to Peter, come, which was giving him the green light to step out of the boat to walk on the water? And it says that as he fastened his eyes on Jesus, he was walking on water, but when he began to look at the waves and the wind, what happened? He began to sink. Can I say it this way? When he got out of the boat, he was running the race because he had his eyes fastened on Jesus. But when he got distracted with the afflictions, with the wind and the waves, that he had total control over, in the sense that they didn't stop him from walking on water. He was walking on water regardless of the wind and the waves. The wind and the waves were already present in his life. It just caused a distraction. He took his eyes off of Jesus and began to give attention to the problem. And when he gave attention to the problem, he was no longer running. He was no longer walking. He was sinking. Right? He started to sink. That's what the word says. And when he started to sink, I don't know how you start to sink, but apparently you do if you're walking on water. Right? And that's how it works in our lives, right? We don't just, day one, we're sunk. It's a gradual, like quicksand, it's a gradual, slow fade. He began to sink. So we do this by keeping our eyes on Jesus, the champion, who initiates and perfects our faith. Because of the joy awaiting him, he endured the cross, disregarding its shame. Now he's seated in the place of honor beside God's throne. Think of all the hostility he endured from sinful people. Then you won't become weary and give up. In the Amplified, verse 3 says, just think of him who endured from sinners such grievous opposition and bitter hostility against himself. Reckon up and consider it all in comparison with your trials. With your trials. You may not be facing opposition from sinners or from the world. You may not have people from the world directly opposing you, but the world system could be. The world system, what's a part of the world system that the devil is the God over, right? Sickness, disease, torment, failure, death, defeat, poverty, all those things that are under the curse. Look at those things. Consider what's opposing you and look at Jesus who endured it. Jesus ran his race. Jesus pressed through. So look to him so that you will not grow weary or exhausted, losing heart and relaxing and fainting in your minds. Fainting in your minds. Turn to Philippians 4:11 real quick. Philippians 4:11. So we're to be running our race right now. We do that by keeping our eyes on Jesus. Laying aside the weight that slows us down, the sin that trips us up, and run the race. Philippians 4, verse 11, Paul says, "Not that I am implying that I am in any personal want, for I have learned how to be content. Satisfied to the point where I am not disturbed or disquieted in whatever state I am." Paul says, I've learned how to be content in whatever state I am in. They tell us at the writing of this letter to the church in Philippi, or this letter of Philippians, that Paul was in prison when he wrote the letter. And there's a misunderstanding among some people, because when they read this verse that Paul says, I've learned to be content, they misunderstand it thinking Paul learned to be content with prison. No, Paul didn't learn to be content with prison. Paul didn't learn to be content with the affliction. Paul learned to be content while he was in it. He learned to be content while he was in it. He didn't learn to be content for prison. It's while he was in it, he learned to be content. And what does that mean? In the Amplified, again, which I just read, it draws it out. Satisfied to the point where I am not disturbed or disquieted. I'm not disturbed by it. I'm not disturbed by this momentary affliction. Well, if you believe in your heart that it's truly momentary and it's a light affliction, then it becomes difficult to be disturbed by it. Right? You have to learn how not to be troubled. He described contentment as being satisfied to the point where you're not disturbed. That's a good definition. That's a great definition of being content. Satisfied to the point where you're not disturbed. I'm content. I'm satisfied to the point where I'm not disturbed. What did Jesus say to the disciples before he left? Let not your hearts be troubled. Right? So then, who's the one that can allow your heart to be troubled or not allow it to be troubled? You. Let not your heart be troubled. And again, friends, if you're focused on the affliction and it feels like it's a big affliction, not a light affliction, and it's threatening to stay for a long time, not momentary, then you're going to have all kinds of trouble in your heart. But we're not to let our hearts be troubled. We're to be content. We are to be satisfied to the point where we're not disturbed. We're not disturbed. If that is the truth, which it is, then nothing can disturb you without your permission. Nothing can disturb you without your permission. I just talked about how for some, trying to make payroll for a Fortune 500 company would be quite disturbing. And the same people that make payroll for a Fortune 500 company, seeing your $35 electric bill, or water bill, they would not be disturbed by that at all. It's your perception. It's what you focused on. It's what you've set your affection or your attention on. Things that come that try to disturb you, or things will come to disturb you, but don't let them live with you. Quit giving them attention. And I want to close with Psalm 23. This is where we're going to set our focus tonight. Because we can talk about how these are light afflictions, these are temporary, and maybe have a recalibration of our focus or of what is real according to the Word versus the smoke screen that the devil's been presenting for all these years. So we can identify it, but let's get a solution here. Let's get a solution. We have a solution or part of a solution already, and that is our focus, our attention. We're not setting our attention on the natural, on the temporary, on the affliction. We're setting our attention on the things that are unseen. What does the Word say? We're setting our attention on Jesus, who endured, who pushed through, right? Think about this. It only took heaven 3 days to fix the condition of mankind. Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection, 3 days. That's temporary for an eternal redemption that was provided. 3 days. Right? Naaman came to the prophet Elijah with leprosy. Naaman didn't give him a special cream that he had to rub on his body for the next 3 years and finally the leprosy would go away. No, the instruction was, with this lifelong disease, you're going to go dip momentarily 7 times in the river Jordan and then you're healed. It's temporary because the Bible gives us solutions that don't take forever. Jesus endured. It was temporary. These are light afflictions. They have come, but they've come to pass, to leave. Psalm 23. Psalm 23. I'm going to have you focus on verse 5, although the whole psalm is wonderful. But Psalm 23, verse 5 says, "You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows." My cup overflows. If you can let God get His hand in your life, it's then a life of overflow. My cup overflows. You have to come to the understanding that God is not going to do things maybe the way you think they should be done. You ever heard the phrase, "Don't cry over spilt milk"? That fits in really well tonight. You know, if you had parents or grandparents that grew up in the Depression, they would cry over spilt milk. They'd cry if you didn't rinse out a ketchup bottle with water before you threw it away. Because you got to save everything. Right? You reuse the Dixie cups. Okay, a few people are tracking what I'm saying. Yeah, you reuse the Ziploc bags, right? Those aren't just one and done. You wash those things out. You hang them on the clothesline, right? I'm not saying that's wrong, but God overflows the cup. And God's not giving you tap water, right? This is the goodness of God. This is heaven's provision overflowing. Overflowing. Overflows. What I want us to focus on is the first half. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. So the enemy is present, right? So what? Right? There's a light affliction happening. So what? There's a table prepared for you that you have a seat at. You know who doesn't have a seat at that table? The devil. The devil does not have a seat at that table. Yet so often we're occupied with the enemy and what he's doing. I don't know about you, but one thing I cherish from growing up on the farm was our family get-togethers. We'd have my dad's side over many times for either Thanksgiving or Christmas, and all the aunts and uncles would bring different dishes, and the buffet would just be full of amazing food. And I couldn't wait to just fill my plate with all of that amazing food, right? And when I would sit down at the table to eat, I was not distracted with what they were doing at the adult table, because I was at the kids' table. I wasn't distracted with what was going on behind me. I had this amazing plate of food that was prepared in front of me, and all I was going to do was eat the food. He prepares a table for you. He prepares a feast in front of you, which is, again, all of heaven's provision. It's right there. But you're not even seated at the table. You're over here squabbling with your cousin, right? You're over here trying to fight with the devil and your enemy who doesn't have a seat at the table. It's for you. It's for you. So I love that picture because it's a turning of your back to the problem and your focus, your face forward here at the table, eating what God has prepared for you with the cup that's overflowing. That's it. That's the place. Not only do you need to keep in the forefront of your thinking, not only do you need to seat yourself there, not only to look at those things which are eternal, which are not in the natural, but the unseen things that we're reading here from God's Word. But folks, you need to demand that of your life. You need to make that demand on the situation that is trying to cause you to cower and to fear. You need to speak to these things and say, nope, no, Mr. Devil, God has prepared a place for me at this table. You don't have a place. I have a place, and I'm going to eat. And this momentary affliction, this light affliction, it has to go in Jesus' name. I'm not focusing on it anymore. I'm not giving it one more second of my attention, because I'm going to be too busy eating everything the Father has provided. I'm going to be too busy taking advantage of the full provision from heaven that He's so graciously given to me. I didn't cause God to write this. God didn't consult me and say, well, Colby, I want to be a good God. What would that look like? He decided this is what He's going to do. Right? God's the one that decided He's going to make a table, fill it up full with provision, and make a seat for me, regardless of my affliction that's going on. Not a seat for the enemy and me, just me, to sit at. You prepare a table before me. God has prepared this table, and we're to partake of everything that He's supplied and to be occupied with that. To be occupied with those things that are the unseen, those things that are eternal, those things that are what we saw back in Hebrews chapter 12, where we're setting our attention, our focus on Jesus, on the Word. If we're occupied with anything less than the table He spread before us, our lives will show it. You can't be content if you're not occupied with the table. You can't be. But if you'll stay occupied with the fullness of what He's provided, talking about it, meditating on it, filling yourselves up with it, there won't be room for the wrong thing to fill up on. No matter what you're facing, it's easy at the table. It's easy at the table. Don't believe for a minute that this thing has to be hard, this affliction is greater than a light affliction, that this thing has to be permanent. Again, all of those things are a smokescreen from the enemy. I don't care if you've been struggling with lack in your life for 27 years. That initially was a light affliction that was temporary. Think about that. Every single thing, whether it's in your health, your relationships, your kids, your finances, your emotions, physical health, whatever it is, no matter how long it has been there, no matter how big it has become, it initially was a light affliction that was meant to be temporary. So this is not a message to condemn. This is a message to get you to that boiling point, like you're at the fast food restaurant and you've been parked now at Culver's for like 20 minutes and they still haven't brought out your double butter burger deluxe. Which I love to say that. So fun. Double butter burger deluxe. It's a great word. Like flabbergasted. I don't know. I like those words. They're fun to say. You need to stand up and say, enough is enough. Enough is enough. I am done with this drive-through affliction. Because that's all it ever was. And unknowingly, you may have allowed it to stay longer than it was intended to be there. But tonight's the night. No mas. No more. Right? It's not allowed anymore. We're going to park up at the table and we're going to enjoy what God has set for us in front of the table to eat. I want you to think about Matthew 11. In verse 28, Jesus says, "Come unto me, all you that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Everything from heaven is intended to come easy. The table, the overflowing cup, the provision, it's easy. My yoke is easy, my burden is light. So sit yourself at the table. And the final instruction I would have is you need to cast all of your cares over onto Him. Because you can get excited over a word from God, and you can go home and say, I'm going to sit at the table. You might even react it or reenact it in the natural. You might sit down at your table and just say, you know what, I'm going to feast on God's word. I'm going to feast on His provision. But because that light affliction hasn't been temporary and it's become bigger than what it was supposed to be, you'll have these thoughts that you're going to have to manage. These thoughts that you're going to have to take captive. Because the devil, when he finds a way in, he doesn't want to give it up. When he finds a breach in your life, an access point, he doesn't want to willingly give it up. That's why people will have this roller coaster relationship with addictions, for some of them for their whole life. Because the devil found a breach through lust, through alcohol, through whatever. It may not even be what man would label an addiction. It could just be you have an addiction to being liked by people. You have to be liked by people. And that's a breach. That's a breach. And the enemy uses those breaches to bring in these things, these problems into your life. And you can tell when you're starting to fill in a breach, when you're starting to no longer have an access point, because then he's going to get his loudest. How do I know that? Well, because it happened in the book of Nehemiah. Anybody remember the story of Nehemiah? It's one of my favorite Bible people. I love Nehemiah. He's awesome. So it gets birthed in his heart to go to Jerusalem and help his fellow tribe members, the children of Israel, his family, to rebuild the wall. And immediately when he starts this campaign, he gets opposition, right? From primarily these two characters, Sanballat and Tobias. And initially they just start off making fun of him. It's powerful. There's 7 different tactics that are used during this story that reveal the 7 different ways the enemy works. The first one was just to mock. And that's usually very common. You start making a decision to get more into the Word, to sit at the table, to be more of a light for Jesus. What happens? You get mocked. And unfortunately, even Christians will mock. They'll chime in. But what I want to do is fast forward to the point as they're rebuilding this wall. It gives you the day by day or the progress report throughout the book of Nehemiah. And when they get to the breach, go tonight and read it for yourself. You'll see they get to the point in rebuilding the wall where they're now repairing the breach. What are they doing? They're repairing the place that was used as an access point for the enemy. And do you know that immediately when they got to the point of repairing the breach, that's when Tobias and Sanballat began to threaten to kill them? Do you remember the story where the Nehemiah gave instructions to have what in one hand and what in the other? Sword in one and the shovel in the other. Remember that? That all took place because Sanballat and Tobias now began to threaten to kill them, and that was in reaction to the repairing of the breach. That's when the heat gets turned up by the devil. So you don't have to be taken by surprise. You don't have to get down in the fetal position and give up. You just know, hey, I'm right where I need to be. And stay seated at the table. Just stay seated at the table. Just stay eating the provision that God's provided for you. Keep running the race. Keep moving forward. Get fed up with this momentary or this meant to be momentary affliction that's just you've been allowing it to keep dragging out. Just be done with it. Go back to running your race. And I'm not harping on this. I'm not wagging my finger at you like you're such a problem. I'm wanting to sound this as a wake-up call, this alarm. Because too many in this room, too many of the church are in this standstill position because of a light affliction that is only to be temporary. You're still worked up because of the condition of your kids. You're still worked up because of the condition of your spouse. You're still worked up because of your job, because of the financial position that you found yourself in at the age you're at. Who cares? Stop making that something bigger than what it is. It's a light affliction. It's a light affliction. I know of a pastor friend of mine. They did not have a lot of money saved up for retirement. They're not anywhere near retiring, but they just expressed that. And someone that they know, they'd ministered 2 years ago, recently just gave to them in the form of an investment a lot of money that will almost take care of a full retirement package. And this thing just came out of the blue. Just came out of the blue. Wasn't something that they'd been expecting, wasn't something that they had been trying to make happen or work. It just came out of the blue. Stop allowing these light afflictions to be anything greater than what they are. It's a light affliction. How long should they last? A moment. A moment. That's it. That's their lifespan for your life. Moving forward. That's their lifespan. These things are just but for a moment. And it's not enough trouble to get me to push myself away from the Father's table and deal with it. You know, the Word says in James 4 that if you resist the devil, he flees. You don't have to jump up and down and bind and loose and scream in speed tongues trying to get the devil to leave. You resist the devil. You know, you could also say, just ignore him. Resist the devil and he'll leave. And when you look at that term flee, it says resist the devil, he will flee. What does it actually mean in the Greek? Run as in terror. He's not that impressive. Run as in terror. Run as in terror. Somebody that you would resist, when you resist them, they run as in terror. That's not a formidable foe. That's not somebody whose their affliction is worthy of you making a mountain out of it. Amen? It's a light affliction that's but for a moment.